Well, one question is the last question.
Mm.
In that same debate, you also mentioned how Bertrand Russell said that the argument from causation or cause and effect has the fallacy of composition.
Yes.
So I want you to request that you explain that a bit more because I don't kind of see it. And why would this fallacy, maybe, for example, why wouldn't it apply to contingency? Why
Yes.
only cause and effect? Yeah, that's it though. Thank you.
The argument, the contingency, sorry, the composition fallacy is in my opinion anyway, is the most severe logical objection, and probably one of the most, I would say, serious, actually, objections to the Kalam cosmological argument from a Ghazalian perspective. And I'll explain to you what this is, first of all. The argument goes as follows. We're saying that you've got two kinds of fallacy. You've got the fallacy of composition and you have the fallacy of division. Okay? These are opposites. In fact, the fallacy of division is the opposite to the fallacy of composition. And just for your notes, this whole study is called Mereology. Mereology is the study of parts and wholes. Parts and wholes. Yeah, Mereology. M-E-R-E. Yeah, and an ology. So the study of parts, which has, by the way, taken in with analytic philosophy now in the 21st century, has taken different forms. It's undergone different kinds of formulations. Yeah, but the point is this: they're saying, look, Bertrand Russell, he said that with his in his discussion with what's his name? Copleston, I forgot his name, Copleston, in the radio debate. He said,
the priest, right?
Yeah,
I saw it. Yeah.
I forget exactly how to pronounce his name, but he said, and he was not just a priest. To be fair, he was actually a very serious philosopher as well, and basically said just because that human beings have a mother and father, it doesn't mean humankind has a mother and father, right? And so this is what Bertrand Russell was saying. In other words, he's saying this: an elephant is big or small comparative to us. Is it big or small?
It's big.
It's a big one, yeah. Now, an elephant is composed of many different atoms. Now, are atoms big or small?
Comparative to us, they're small.
Yeah. So you have the big elephant, which is made up of small atoms. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Good. Now, here's the point. He was saying this: if we're saying everything that begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Yes. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
How do we know that the universe has a cause? Or how do we argue for it if we use this form of the argument? We argue for it by saying that since there are causes within the universe itself must have a cause. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay, good. So far, so good, right? So he's saying, but there is clearly a disparity between the part and the whole. So in other words, for example, the elephant is made up of small atoms, and yet the elephant is big. So you can have a difference in property between that which is a part of something and the larger part of it. In the case of the elephant, you have small atoms making up a big elephant. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you with me so far?
Yeah, I am. Wallahi, I am. Yeah.
You're saying that the universe itself has a cause because the universe has causes within it. He's saying, he's saying it's the same problem. You got the same problem. You're saying that you're doing ta'mim, you're doing generalization. You're saying because what's in it is small, the whole thing must be small. Yeah. So it's because what's within it are causes. Yeah, the whole thing must have a cause. Now here's the problem. The fallacy of composition only works when you have a full knowledge of the whole. Okay. Now let me explain. If I say the brick wall is made up of red bricks. Now each brick is what color?
Red.
And the wall is what color?
Red.
So is there compatibility here between the part and the whole?
Yeah.
How do I know? How do I know?
Because you observed the whole.
Because I've observed the whole. Has anyone observed the universe from an outside perspective?
No.
No. So can we make claims about the universe?
Interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess not.
So what this does, the problem here, what this does is it basically stunts the discussion, because either one of those people cannot say, like the theist cannot say, just because there are causes within the universe, that the universe itself has a cause. And the atheist can't say, just because there are causes within the universe, it doesn't, because neither the theist or the atheist has what? A full knowledge of
The whole.
the whole universe. Thank you very much. So this is why it's serious, because it does not number one, it's not an undercutter, it's not a defeater, but it's a blind spot. It is a blind spot. It's a blind spot which has to be covered. That's why I don't argue from causation. And this is what Ibn Tufayl said. Yeah, Ibn Tufayl, one of the Arab philosophers. He says this, and I mentioned this in my book, actually, on Kalam Cosmological Arguments. He says you have to argue on two tracks. And what he was talking about, two tracks, is the causation and contingency, which is necessity contingency. Because when you use both, it's like when you play chess. It's not possible I don't play chess, but from my limited knowledge of the game, it's not possible usually for you to finish off the queen unless you have two things moving at the same time. You have to set up the punch the haymaker, in order for it to land. Causation is like, I'm happy to use causation, but causation, in order for the argument to be an undercutter completely, should be coupled with contingency. Why? Because contingency, the same thing is not the same. We're not making an argument from part to whole. In fact, we're making an argument which is called tarkib, which is the opposite. We're saying that anything which is made up of anything, parts, anything which is made up of parts is dependent. The universe is made up of parts, therefore the universe is dependent. Can you see this? So anything which is, and when we define parts, we're talking about something which can be assembled and reassembled. It can take it like a pizza. You take a pizza, you eat it, you slice like that. Anything which is made up, and the human being. And by the way, it's in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَرَكَّبَكَ, He's the one who done tarkib of you. And this tarkib is where you put different parts and you put them together. Now, the fact that that something is murakkab, or in this case, composed of parts like this, shows that there is a murakkib, that there is something which allowed these things to be composed together. Now, so we're not arguing from parts to wholes. In fact, we're doing the opposite. We're saying, we're not even arguing from wholes to parts even. We're making one simple observation. Anything that is made up of parts is generated. Okay, is dependent and or generated. And that the universe is made up of parts, therefore it's generated and or dependent. Khalas. In this case, the only way out of this is to claim that the universe is not made up of parts and that it's not dependent. And now you have to start providing proofs. Now the burden of proof is upon the person who's making the claim.
Made the claim.
That makes sense. Huh?
Yeah, it does.
That's what solves the composition fallacy for me. You argue on, you can use this argument of Al-Ghazali, yeah, it's good, nice, but don't use it by itself. That's why I use the other one, because they'll always come with the composition fallacy, and both of us have no full answer of the whole. We can, if you wanted to go into metaphysical causation, akhi, it's a jar with worms that you don't want to open. It's a long story. Causation, as philosophers have spoken about it for a long time. You can argue of metaphysical causation, meaning causation is not physical only. You can argue on a priori grounds, and that's another way out. But for that to be accessible to a lay audience, that's going to be a challenge in and of itself. So that's why I like to use the argument that I use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, but what about the fallacy? Because you mentioned the opposite of the fallacy of composition is the fallacy of division.
Yeah, but this is not applicable here.
It is not applicable.
Do you know why it's not applicable? Because we're not saying that we are making a single premise argument. We're not saying 1, 2, 3. We're saying one thing. Anything which is anything that is made up of parts is dependent.
Generated.
Yeah, generator dependent. Halas. That's one, and you can have an argument with one premise. That's my argument. Anything that is made up of parts that you can take out and put in, like this is what we mean by parts. It's subject to disassembly, if you want to call it that. You know, anything that is subject to disassembly or addition or subtraction, anything like that, that is dependent. That's one observation, one premise argument. And if someone says, no, it has to be three premises, who told you that it has to be three premises? That this is jahl. This actually is not correct. You can have an argument, which is a logical argument with only one premise.
Okay, cool.